What are friends? Friends are there to pick you up when you're feeling a little down. Friends are there to rearrange someone's face when they're acting like a clown. Friends are a hamster, a fish, and an owl in Kirby's Dream Land 2. If you ain't fighting on their side, well, man, I'd pity you. Kirby's back. Will you be my friend?
What's up, YouTube? James Comics here with my review of Kirby and the Forgotten Land. And if you want to see more Kirby content, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment down below what type of video you'd like to see next. And we'll go over each category of the game, each different area, and which parts of it are good and which parts of it are bad. So we'll start with the art style, and the art style was definitely amazing and beautiful. And the post-apocalyptic theme really meshed well with Kirby in its traditional environments. You'd think someone as cute as Kirby wouldn't mesh well with like an apocalypse style, but the way they did it in HAL Laboratories or whatever, sort of made it cohesive and work within this world. Because it still retained most of its cuteness, it just had a lot of rustic scenery and stuff like that. And speaking of design, I guess we'll go into the worlds in the game. And there weren't too many worlds, there were about 7 or so, like kind of 8 if you count like the final boss world. But most Kirby games have about 7 worlds anyway, so it wasn't that bad. The worlds were very diverse as well, and while some were generic, of course the final world was lava themed, as pretty much every Nintendo game is. Some were extremely unique, most notably World 3 Wanderia Remains, which was basically a carnival world, sort of reminiscent of Bowser's World in Mario 3D World. But instead of an active amusement park like Bowser's World, it was dilapidated and haunted, putting a fresh spin on the concept. And the first world itself was also kind of iconic in its own way. It's on the front of the box, and it feels really special and unique for this game. And I will say, the desert world in this game was also kind of unique compared to most desert worlds. It was definitely more apocalyptic, Mad Max style than most desert worlds, which emulate sort of Egypt or the Middle East. And this game is still extremely easy. That's something else we have to talk about. But I will say, the option of Breeze mode or Wild mode helps, and the difficulty of the final Coliseum makes the game far harder than Star Allies ever was. Like, I beat Star Allies near 100% in 15 hours. It took me 25 hours to 100% this game, and 5 of them were spent on the Coliseum. That's how hard it was. And the difficulty itself, I mean, like, the 3DS games are probably hard in this game, I gotta admit. Like, Robobot, I haven't beaten the Coliseum, I don't think. I never beat it. Like, I spent most of my time trying to beat the True Arena, and I just never did. On this game, I mean, I grinded enough to the point where I could beat it, so... yeah, I guess it's way easier than the 3DS games, but still definitely harder than than Star Allies. And definitely harder than Epic Yarn, if you know what I mean. That game has, like, no definitions. Okay. In terms of music, the music is probably the best in the entire series. And the big standout to me is probably King Dedede's new theme, which is, like, such a good banger. And in both renditions of it, the first battle and the second battle, so... and the opening stage theme is also pretty iconic, all things considered. The story wasn't that much. I mean, it's a Kirby game, but it did get interesting and kind of creepy at the end, like all Kirby games too. And the internet was sort of... spoiler alert for this entire video, starting out. The internet was sort of correct with Elflin being the villain. I mean, well, yes, but no, that's classic meme. Because he was kind of the villain, but it was more like his evil half or something like that. Something around that, but... yeah, and the story in this game actually made a lot of sense, saying how the Wild World, or like the Forgotten Land, was sort of an alternate dimension to Planet Popstar. And Planet Popstar was where all the inhabitants of the Forgotten Land went to, and they left all the animals behind, which is very interesting and unique for a Kirby game. New Mouthful mode abilities in the game are also fun distractions from the main copy abilities, and it's kind of a shame you can't take them outside of the actual levels and you can't use them while fighting bosses. But as they stand, they're pretty fun, and they're very reminiscent of Super Mario Odyssey. I don't know if they necessarily needed to be in this game, like, they weren't the selling point of this game to me, but they were still fun additions, and they were fine. And I kind of wish there were more of them, because after you get to, like, the middle of the game, there aren't any new copy abilities until the final boss when you get the truck. But besides the scarcity of them, I kind of like them in this game. There aren't as many new copy abilities as there were before, or just general copy abilities as there were before. But the new upgrade system makes up for that, with many abilities drastically changing as they evolve. My favorite was by far King Dedede's hammer. Oh my gosh, that ability was so OP. Like 2 hits would kill most bosses. Well, 4 hits would kill most bosses. 2 hits would kill every mini boss if you held down the B button. So that was my favorite ability in the game. And The new ability Ranger works within the world of Kirby. I didn't really like it that much. Like, personally, I would have rather seen Yo-Yo, ESP, or Ninja return for the game. But their absence didn't bother me all too much. I mean, those are like my three favorite copy abilities. But it's fine they were in this game. I still like Hammer and Sword and stuff like that. And Fire. It was stupid though that Sleep returned. Sleep is kind of useless. But in this game, I actually used Sleep more than normal. Because when you upgrade Sleep, you can actually get like an attack boost as well as a health boost. Which was kind of useful in this one case. Same thing goes for the Crash mode and Crash ability. Crash ability was kind of useless in other games. In this game, I mean, it's still useless. I never used it outside of the Treasure Road, but it's still fine. And speaking of Treasure Roads, let's talk about those. They were really cool ways for the devs to make us learn how to use these abilities without forcing us to go through tutorials. They're sort of like throwing us right into the danger itself. It's like when someone tries to teach you how to swim and just throws you into the pier instead of teaching you how to swim. It's sort of throwing you right into the action and telling you and making you learn how to do it without actually making that part of the main game. So, well, it's sort of part of the main game, but without it actually being within the story. So I really enjoyed the Treasure Roads and the rare stone system. I will say I appreciate that the rare stones were actually rare collectibles. Instead of them being all over the map and like really easy for you to get, you had to actually work really hard to get them, either from Treasure Roads, gift codes, or, as we're going to talk about soon, the arenas. So it made them feel scarce, and scarcity is a really important part of video game collectibles, or like currency systems. The Waddle Dee Town was a cool hub world that smartly incorporated the many mini games that are par for the course for a new installment in the series. Every Kirby game has a bunch of mini games that come with it. Star Allies had it, Robobot had it, Triple Deluxe had it. My favorite by far so far is like Triple Deluxe is DDD Drum Dash or something, where you're like King DDD jumping on drums. That was really fun. And this game had like 3 different mini games. It had the fishing mini game, which wasn't that good. I mean, we've seen this in Mario Odyssey. We saw it in Paper Mario. We basically have it in every Animal Crossing installment. It's another fishing game, and yeah, it's just fishing, whatever. What else do we have? We had that cooking dash mini game. I really liked it a lot. Like, I really like cooking games in general. I used to play a lot of them on my old iPad when I was a young iPad kid. But I will say that the fishing game, there weren't enough levels in the cooking game. So if there were more levels added to it, it would probably be my favorite game. Maybe in the entire, like, favorite mini game in the entire Kirby series. But there were only like 4 levels, or 3 levels, 3 difficulties. So it wasn't that interesting, and you didn't really make the food, you just served it up. So if they made it like Kirby cooking the entire course and serving it up, I would really like it, because Kirby's cute and I like cooking. So if they make an entire spin-off game like that, sort of like Kirby Battle Royale, I'd really like it. So, but by far, the standout game of all these mini games is Kirby Tilt and Roll, and it was absolute trash. I hated this game. I hate motion controls on the Nintendo Switch. Like, I spent an entire hour trying to complete the final level on hard mode in Tilt and Roll. And it was like a school night too, so I was like staying up late at night trying to complete Kirby Tilt and Roll. Wow. So that was kind of embarrassing, but it happened, okay? And I hate Kirby Tilt and Roll. Like, I like motion control games on the Wii, and I mean, I like some motion control games, but when it comes to mini games, they just get on my nerves. Like on Mario Galaxy, when there's like the sort of golf ball galaxy or whatever, where you gotta get the ball in the hole. I hate that so much, and this reminded me too much of that. So yeah, motion controls can work, but not when they're required, and not when they're connected to some stupid, trashy mini game like Kirby Tilt and Roll. But on a separate note, the option of powering up copy abilities within the town in Waddle Dee's shop with extra rare stones to get plus a number or plus a star definitely helped me in the final Coliseum, and like sometimes in the actual bosses, which they weren't actually hard, but we'll get to that. So I thought it was a really smart addition. The fact that it didn't contribute to the completion percentage made it a comfort, not a requirement, and I really like that, because I hate it when games make you or force you to get all the different costumes and like upgrades for your character, rather than just letting you unlock everything within the world and get that as and count that as a 100% completion. For example, Immortals Phoenix Rising, I beat that already on this channel. Check out my review of it if you want. With that game, they kind of force you to unlock every costume if you want to feel like you 100% completed the game. And to do so, you gotta actually spend real life money, because the shop changes a lot, and it's like Marvel's Avengers on PS4 and Xbox, where like the shop changes constantly. So you can't really unlock everything within the world. That's sort of the case here with the power-up abilities. You don't really power them up within the main game. You gotta like grind the Coliseum or use gift codes, but they're not required for 100%. So I like that they're a comfort, not a requirement. That's a great addition. And in terms of the boss fights themselves, they were kind of hit or miss for me. Okay, there were some I really liked. Like I loved Wispy Wood's version in this game, Tropical Woods. I love seeing how Wispy Woods changes over games, but this one made a lot of sense. I mean, it's sort of a foreign, wild version of him, a palm tree version of Wispy Woods. I really like that. And the final bosses are all really good, except for Leongar himself was kind of boring, like just a lion, like whatever. It's kind of generic. I really liked Elphalus, Fecto Elphalus, and Fecto Fargo, the giant like Resident Evil looking thing chasing after you in a hallway. Those were really cool boss fights. I didn't really like though how we fought King Dedede twice for 2 worlds, as well as the Phantom versions of King Dedede, but they were still fun enough, I guess. And like I said earlier, King Dedede's theme in both battles was such a banger. And the mini bosses in this game were probably kind of, pretty disappointing compared to other games. There were only 4 types of mini bosses. I mean, I don't remember how many each game have, but I remember there being far more than 4 mini bosses. And of all the mini bosses, Florina's probably the worst. She just turns into a tornado, and she's the newest boss too. She just turns into a tornado, and it's kind of useless. Like whatever, I don't care about her. She's so useless. And speaking of Florina, I will say Tornado ability in this game is probably better than it was in 2D games. There's more use in using Tornado in a 3D space than there was in using the Tornado power-up in a 2D space. So I even forgot it was in 2D games. So that's how bad it was in those games and how much better it is in this game. And speaking of boss fights again, the Coliseum, a staple of the series, returned yet again in this game, or the arena in other games. The first 2 levels were extremely easy, and I appreciate that you could grind the second one for rare stones, which I did, to fully power up my King Dedede hammer. And my ranger. However, the third and final level was painstakingly dreadful, but admittedly it was fair. When I beat it at 12:30 a.m. on the night, or 12:30 a.m. on the night before the last day of school this year, I had a huge ego boost and felt like the most hardcore gamer, even though I was just playing a Kirby game. So yeah, the final Coliseum is like bone-chillingly hard. Like it took me so long to grind and complete, but when I finally did it, I felt so accomplished. Like I wasn't as proud as I was when I beat Cuphead, but it was definitely up there in terms of Nintendo Switch experiences. So yeah, it was definitely the biggest challenge in this game, and it definitely provided some interesting, interesting remixes of older bosses in a way that most Kirby games basically do. So yeah, it wasn't fresh and new for this game, but it was still a fun addition to this game. All things considered, I wouldn't say this tops Triple Deluxe or Planet Robobot as my favorite Kirby game. I still prefer 2D games in the Kirby style, but it solidly takes 3rd place and makes me excited for the future of the franchise in the 3rd dimension. I bet the next Forgotten Land game or next 3D Kirby game will probably improve on most of these aspects and make it even better than it was this time. Hopefully there'll be a harder difficulty mode, and maybe it'll be slightly longer than 25 hours, because I don't think it was worth the $60 as it stands right now. That's just me personally. I really think even WarioWare Get It Together was more worth $60 than this game. So yeah, one of my friends, Sean, he even asked me if he should buy it, and I was like, no, I wouldn't. I would just wait till it was like 50 or 40. Because the hours, like, normally I don't care too much about hours, but with this Kirby game, they really flew by. And like, when you compare this to another 3D platformer on the Switch, like Mario Odyssey, I don't know if it's really worth it. As a Kirby fan, I think it's worth it, but like, as a general fan, like, of Nintendo games, I don't think it's worth it. So with that being said, here's my overview of my review. Kirby in the Forgotten Land is an exquisite platformer that advances the Kirby series into the 3rd dimension in a logical and enjoyable way. The difficulty is still relatively low, but with more to do and harder challenges than many previous games, this game still remains one of the best 3D platformers in recent memory. My playtime was 25 hours, as I mentioned earlier, and my score for this game would probably be a solid 9 out of 10. In terms of completion, I would highly recommend completing this game, because it constantly rewards you as you progress. The completion process does not exceed beating the main game all too much. The process is also easier than most Nintendo games besides the arena, so I'd definitely call it worth the completion. And with that being said, remember to like, subscribe, and comment down below, and be on the lookout for my review of Super Mario Strikers Battle League this weekend. JM Comics, out.